Superman is the quintessential superhero. He is the greatest of everyone. He is always shown to do what's right when it's right to do it. He is supposed to be a pure beacon of hope and light. Hell, I made an entire video talking about how much I love Superman's character and the idea of being a perfect hero. So why are we so obsessed with seeing him as a villain? Over the last couple years, we have seen a lot of interpretations of Superman as a villain, or what he would look like if he was evil. Now this, of course, comes back to his comic book origins and his roots, where, he was shown as a villain often. But nobody does such a disservice to Superman as a villain than Injustice. Now don't get me wrong, I love the Injustice franchise. I grew up reading the comics and playing the video games. I'm not the biggest fan of NetherRealm Studios' current day's work, but I do really enjoy this game specifically. But I really have a problem with the story of Injustice 1 and how it basically bastardizes the character of Superman for the sake of plot. And there's no better place to start this analysis than with year one of the Injustice comic books. But before we get into that, I just want to say thank you to all of the support on my last video, and if you would be so inclined to leave a like or a subscribe, and if you want to support me and see my content early, you can support me on Patreon, linked in the description below. Without further ado, let's talk about year one, which begins with Superman accidentally killing his own wife in a maniacal plot by the Joker to give Superman his one bad day, and he doesn't exactly respond well to this. Pretty much after Superman kills Joker, he opens the floodgate on essentially becoming a borderline terrorist. He runs around and starts killing people and or silencing his outspoken critics as he takes martial law to Metropolis, to the point where people begin to fear him. And as a matter of fact, when Batman tries to create a group to stand up to Superman, he loses it. And when Batman decides to make a plot to get an advantage upon Superman, it doesn't go well, mainly because Oliver's arrow bounces off and hits Superman's father, who in this universe survived till Superman was an adult. And of course, for me, this is really where Superman hits his point of no return. He completely disregards his own family, all in the pursuit of not only killing Ollie, but also hurting Batman, resorting to torture in order to get the information that he wants. This, to me, does not seem like something Superman would do in the slightest, but it only really gets worse with year two, where I believe Superman makes the worst decisions possible. The Green Lantern Corps hated what Superman was doing on Earth, and as protectors of the galaxy went down to stop him. But of course, Superman gets bailed out by Sinestro. That's right, Superman is not only running martial law on Earth, but he's also working with Sinestro, buying a bullshit sob story that he gives, and openly and actively working with the Yellow Lantern Corps of Fear so that he can get what he wants. It gets so bad to the point Superman instills such great fear, he becomes a Yellow Lantern himself. Superman becomes a Yellow Lantern. Just let that sink in for a second. The man known for his perseverance, for holding up good no matter what happens, for protecting people, becomes the very thing he swore to fight against when he picked up being the mantle of Superman. The S on his chest that stands for hope is now seen as a symbol of fear. But it's not just Superman who the Injustice comics and game bastardize, it's also Wonder Woman. Year 3 really focuses on Wonder Woman coming back into the fray after being gone for most of year 2. In fact, she was able to convince Superman to take off his Yellow Lantern ring, but she's not exactly any better. In a scuffle between Batman's enemies, she ends up killing Huntress, because, simply put, Huntress wasn't with her. Does that sound like Wonder Woman? Brutally killing one of her former teammates for what? Simply siding against her? And if you think Superman's getting off scot-free with year 3, you'd be very mistaken, as the Teen Titans have gone to the Fortress of Solitude in search of a way to help fight Superman. And for their troubles, they have Superman not only come to them and tell them to stop, but Superman literally beats Superboy damn near to death because he didn't side with him. That's his own flesh and blood he's willing to beat to death. And then in order to save him, he entraps the entire Teen Titans in the Phantom Zone. It was either that or let Superboy die. And that brings us to years 4 and years 5. I'm going to cover them at the same time, mainly because they're so sparse when it comes to Superman's characterization. In year 4, all he does is fight a bunch of gods and his own teammates, but year 5 is really where it gets crazy as he starts recruiting villains to help him work. And not only that, but he starts losing it on everyone. If you don't instantly side with him and believe he's right, and Flash had his doubts, you'll just be court-martialed and damn near killed by Superman. He wants an authoritarian state over the entire world, not just Metropolis anymore, but the entire world. And it takes Batman and Lex Luthor, who's a good guy in this universe, to summon a Justice League from another Earth, just for the chance of being able to stop Superman. Ironically enough, this Justice League was on the same day that Superman would have lost his wife. And that will bring us to the start of the first game. But I want to do a little discussion on just how poorly they characterize Superman in this run. Now, for as long as I can remember, Superman has always had his fair share of evil counterparts, even in DC. The most well-known for me was Ultraman. Now, Ultraman works because this is a different, separate universe. A Superman that isn't supposed to be mainline. This Superman is written to be mainline Superman who just had a bad day. Now, if you want an example of a Superman who truly had a bad day, look no further than Justice League Apocalypse War. Superman was literally stripped of all of his powers, beaten by Darkseid, had the entire Earth taken over and destroyed, and yet he didn't waver once in his conviction to being a hero. He continued to fight tooth and nail to be a hero in a world that was broken. That is Superman. Okay, rant over. We can now talk about the game instead.
The collar's working. Good. Re-education wasn't going to affect him.
Yeah, you heard that right. Superman has freaking mind control collars that he is going to put on people in order to control their minds, instead of, I don't know, maybe throwing Doomsday back into space because he's extremely dangerous, extremely belligerent, and could potentially get millions killed. No, that doesn't matter to this Superman. What matters to him is retaining what he believes to be order, and if that means using the worst weapons at his disposal, then he's going to use them. This Superman is like the peak version of becoming what you're fighting. It's as though he stared into the abyss, and when the abyss gazed back at him, he blinked. Shout out to you if you got that reference. But getting back on track, the Justice League of Earth Prime, as I'm going to call it, has come to Injustice's world, and Superman is demanding they are hunted down and taken into custody because he fears being overthrown. And of course, the next time we see Superman, he is about to go off on a tyrannical tirade about how he is so justified in using his powers the way he is, and how he is the hero. Yes, he still believes he is the hero in this situation, despite everything.
For what? To control? To oppress?
I could have prevented Metropolis! Saved my family!
Crime took my family too, Clark.
You weren't the gun! Now!
Now, while I completely get where Superman is coming from, in the fact that he has quite literally been used as a weapon to kill the only thing closest to him, but that doesn't justify him going out and doing all of the things he is currently doing, i.e. enslaving the entire world and forcing them to believe in his ideology. It even gets so bad that Lex Luthor, who is his best friend in this entire universe, has gone against him in this world because he believes what Superman is doing is so wrong. Lex Luthor goes so far as to challenge Superman to a fight. It has gotten so bad that Lex doesn't even believe in him anymore. I mean, this is the guy's best friend, and he's going behind his back and working with Batman in order to get a kryptonite bullet to kill Superman. Now, unfortunately for Lex, the rest of the Justice League of this Earth still don't agree with him. Billy Batson decides to help Superman and keep him from dying because Billy is still a child, mind you. Billy still believes in Superman. But what Superman does next is he gets up and he murders his oldest friend. He murders Lex Luthor in broad daylight. In a broadcast being sent across Metropolis, he kills Lex Luthor. But if there's one thing Superman in this world still cares about, it's his public perception. He still believes he's the hero. So when he starts hearing the entirety of Metropolis and some parts of the world calling him evil because he just killed his best friend, he loses it. And this Superman is extremely volatile at this point. And it's getting so bad, people like Billy don't even believe in the guy anymore. And let me put this into perspective. Billy has been Superman's #1 supporter, #2 behind Diana probably, supporter since he made this change. Billy has stuck with Superman through every single decision, every single choice, and every single action he has taken in the comic book and in the game. And he has never once wavered in his dedication. But the one time he does, Superman loses it.
We're wiping out whole cities? Invading worlds and other dimensions?
You have a problem, Billy.
Well, yeah. It's crazy. It's going too far.
Man's world is incapable of self-rule. We will preserve order.
No. There have to be limits. Even on us. Especially on us.
That's enough!
We can't do this. Have you gone nuts? Lois would never want it.
And because Billy chose to speak up, he was quite literally murdered in cold blood by Superman. Keep in mind, Billy is at most 15 years old. In Injustice comic books terms, pre-52, Billy is still like 10 years old when he gets his powers. And considering it's only been 5 years since Superman started this crusade, Superman openly and willingly killed a 15-year-old boy, and then looks around and asks anybody else, as though he's threatening to kill the rest of the people in his room, who have supported him throughout everything. And the last time we see Superman talk in this story mode, he is speaking to himself. And what drives me even crazier is, NetherRealm does a really good job at writing a correct Superman, and yet writes this dude so terribly.
I am this world's savior. I protect it. That's what's happening out there? Protection? Disobedient children will be punished. Children? We're not gods. We don't decide who lives and who dies. The decision is mine! It became mine when Joker turned me into a weapon of mass destruction! I know what you lost, and you judge me? After I've killed you, I'll bring Lois here. When she sees how I perfected this world, she'll be afraid and disgusted. She'll be alive! Lois's death doesn't just... He stole her from me! You stole this planet's freedom!
Even when confronted by himself, Injustice Superman is still so deluded, he believes himself to be the hero. It almost reminds me of Cyborg Superman or Homelander in the way they see themselves. But here's the thing, this just isn't Superman. There's no way Superman has one bad day and breaks like this. Not the man who puts himself on the line every day to save people and is actively holding other heroes such as Batman in check from doing something insane. Now, I feel like this truly could have been easily rectified by just making one small, simple little change, and by making this Ultraman instead of Superman. You make that one change, and I would have never had to have made this video. You know, there's probably some parallel between my last video on Joker and this Superman. Something along the lines of both of them having protagonist syndrome and believing they can change the world, and in doing so end up making it worse for everybody else. But I think I'll leave that to someone far smarter than me to talk about. This video was a lot to put together. And I don't love to include the whole mid-roll call to action thing, but, you know, trying something new. If you've made it this far, I truly appreciate it. And don't get me wrong, I really love the comic books. I think they have amazing art. I just think the story is kind of mid. I love the games. And if you have made it this far for the second time I'm saying this, go ahead and give me a like, a subscribe. Check out my Patreon if you want. And comment, I don't know, your favorite interpretation of Superman. Other than that, this has been V, and I'm signing off. Thank you all so much for watching.